I woke up before sunrise, the kind of quiet blue that makes the cul-de-sac look like it's holding its breath. I tied off the last helium balloon, taped a crepe paper arch to the garage door, and set the dinosaur cake to cool by the kitchen window. 8 candles waited in a little plastic bag. My son, Noah, was turning 8, and I wanted the day to land like a perfect fastball in the sweet spot. Clean, bright, unforgettable for all the right reasons. But all morning, the wrong kind of unforgettable hovered. The feeling had been creeping in for months. A shadow at the edge of the frame, late-night showers, face-down phone on the counter, a new laugh I didn't recognize, a perfume note that didn't live in our house before. You can tell yourself 100 stories to keep your world intact, and I told myself every one of them. She's stressed, work is hard, she's just tired. Her name is Lauren. We met at a 4th of July block party 11 years ago. Paper plates sagging under ribs, fireworks prepping in the bed of a neighbor's truck. She said I had kind eyes. I said she had an honest smile. We were effortless until we weren't, until busy became a complete sentence, and later became our love language. I didn't know how to name the silence between us, only that it grew tall and kept growing. 2 weeks before Noah's birthday, I found the hotel receipt. Not dramatic, not lipstick on a shirt, just a crisp printed thing folded into a reusable grocery bag. I smoothed it on the counter like a map. Tuesday, downtown. A room with a view I'd never seen. And a name, the kind of name that looks harmless until it's not. M. Carter. We know a Mark Carter. PTA dad. Coaches Noah's rec baseball team. 3 houses down, 2 backyard fences away. I didn't storm. I didn't rage. I stood there with the receipt under my palms and listened to the kitchen clock count my life. Later that night, I watched Mark throw pop flies to boys in blue jerseys while Lauren clapped on the bleachers. When she smiled at him, it reached a part of her face that hadn't looked at me in a long time. My stomach dropped through the aluminum seat. I wish I could say I planned the reveal to be noble, to protect our son, to minimize harm. I didn't. I planned it because something inside me broke in a way that demanded light. Shame rots in the dark, and if I kept living with a secret only I carried, I didn't know who I would become. I set up the projector for Noah's party. A slideshow of his greatest hits, I told everyone. Baby photos to baseball bloopers to the picture of him losing a tooth at Disney. I tucked 3 slides at the end like a trapdoor. Screenshots, stamped times. A hallway security cam from that hotel that cost me a favor at my cousin's job. I told myself this wasn't revenge, that revenge belongs to people who want to burn everything. I told myself this was truth. That morning, while I frosted the cake, Lauren drifted in with bed hair and the robe she wears when she wants to look soft. "Do you need anything?" she asked, voice neutral, almost gentle. There was a flash of something in her eyes I couldn't read. Pity? Fear? Maybe just the reflection of the stand mixer. "No," I said. "We're good." She kissed Noah's head when he thudded down the stairs in socks, hugged me quick, and moved through the kitchen like nothing had teeth. I watched her float and thought, my cheating wife is making my son's favorite fruit tray in my house with our knives. The phrase didn't belong in my mouth, but it lived there anyway. The words were sour, heavy, true. Cheating wife. My cheating wife. Neighbors started texting about parking. My sister, Jess, called to see if we had enough folding chairs. Mark sent, "Hey man, need an extra table?" I stared at his bubble and typed back, "Sure, thanks." He added a thumbs up like we were still 2 dads who talked about weather and who should bring ice. I slipped the USB drive into the projector case and closed it with a little click that sounded, to me, like the beginning of a new life and the end of the one we'd built. I wish I could tell you I didn't know what would happen when the last 3 slides came up. But I did. I knew exactly how glassy calm can become a storm, how a family can turn inside out in seconds. I believed, maybe naively, that sunlight is the antidote to infidelity, that truth is a disinfectant and not an acid. I told myself our family would break either way. At least this way the lie wouldn't linger like toxic love. Later, when I look back at the day, I'll think about the smell of buttercream and balloons squeaking on the ceiling, about my son's giggle when he discovered the bounce house, about how the sky was the color of optimism. I'll also remember the weight of the remote in my pocket like a trigger I could choose not to pull. I'll remember the exact thought I had when I stepped into the garage to breathe. If not now, when? If not here, where? If not in front of the people who will help hold me up, then in front of whom? And I'll remember that I loved Noah too much to let him grow up learning that silence is how men survive betrayal. By noon, our driveway looked like a dealership for used minivans. Coolers lined the curb. Kids turned the cul-de-sac into a racetrack on scooters. Someone's aunt asked me where to put the veggie platter. I pointed, smiled, and felt like a wax figure in my own life. The grill, at least, gave me a job. I flipped burgers and took questions about the Dodgers and let the smoke sting my eyes so I had an excuse if anyone saw them water. Lauren worked the crowd like she'd trained for it. "Thanks for coming. Can I get you a drink? Isn't Noah getting tall?" She wore a sundress that made strangers think our marriage was fine. I didn't know if she was acting, if the lie had become comfortable, or if she still believed I didn't know. I cataloged every touch, her hand on a forearm when she laughed, how she leaned in to hear whether she scanned for someone. Cheating wife. The phrase beat in my head in time with the bass of the Bluetooth speaker. Mark arrived with a folding table on his shoulder and a boyish grin. "Happy birthday, champ," he said to Noah, mussing his hair like he owned the right. He nodded to me. "Where you want this?" "By the drinks," I said, and the words came out steady enough to scare me. I pictured the third slide, hotel hallway, frozen grainy frame at 10:47 p.m., two familiar figures in a half embrace that tried to hide itself against the wall. Denial doesn't survive in pixels. Jess hugged me like she could sense I was braced for impact. She and I grew up in a house where secrets fermented into yelling, where doors took the brunt of emotion. "You sure you're okay?" she asked, voice low. "Ask me in 6 hours," I said. She winced. Her eyes followed Lauren for a second, then came back to me. Jess never liked Lauren. Too curated, she'd said, too keen to post and less keen to do. But she never said it out loud because she loves Noah and she respects lines. I didn't want to turn my sister into a soldier. I just wanted the truth to have a mouth. The magician arrived, Noah's one request, and set up near the garage. Kids gathered on a blanket with fruit punch mustaches. I watched my son sit cross-legged, looking up like belief itself, and a knife twisted in me. Was I about to ruin his favorite day? Was my definition of honesty just selfishness dressed as principle? I thought about postponing. I could quietly separate next week, file papers, keep the party clean. But then I imagined Mark coaching on Saturday as if nothing happened, imagined Lauren explaining my absence with a half-truth that made me the villain, imagined our neighborhood becoming a theater where I played confused dad while everyone else read a different script. The fuse kept shortening. I took a lap through the house to get the projector ready. In the den, a pile of wrapped presents leaned like a rainbow skyline. The projector sat where I'd set it last night, aimed at the blank wall we sometimes used for movie nights. I tested the remote, watched the first image come up. Noah in the NICU, a hat too big for his head, my finger in his tiny fist. I swallowed. The second photo was his first day of preschool, Cowlick refusing to lay down. Slide by slide, a life we built. Lauren appeared in the doorway with a cup of lemonade and a careful expression. "Everything good?" "Yeah," I said. "You look nice." It was both true and irrelevant. She stepped closer, lowered her voice. "You seem somewhere else." "I am here," I said, and for the first time in months I meant it. A strange calm washed me, the kind that comes after you decide to tell your boss you're quitting or after you click submit on a job application. The future becomes unknowable, which is terrifying and weirdly pure. We migrated back outside. The magician pulled a dove from a knot of scarves, and the kids shrieked like something impossible had broken through reality to say hello. Parents clapped, someone started a chant for cake, and I looked at my watch. 2 o'clock. The slideshow was scheduled for 2:15, right after Happy Birthday, while frosting still glistened and attention was easy to herd. I cut the cake, passing plates down the table, the motion both mundane and holy. Lauren stood beside me, knife in hand, smiling with everybody else. Mark reached over me for a napkin, his arm brushing mine. A little jolt ran through me, the body remembering something the brain already knew. I can tell you now that I wasn't thinking about humiliation. I wasn't thinking about ratios of pain. I was thinking about my son learning that adults say the thing that matters even when it sets the room on fire. I was thinking about family as something built on the reality we share, not the fantasy we stage. Betrayal had already happened. My choice was whether to keep casting it in a play. At 2:16, I wiped my hands, took the remote from my pocket, and cleared my throat. "Hey everybody," I said, voice carrying just enough. "If you can gather in the den, we've got a little movie star who's ready for his close-up. Laughter, applause, a herd of small feet." The projector warmed, the room dimmed, the screen bloomed white. I sat cross-legged behind Noah on the floor, close enough to smell his sugar breath. Lauren stood a few feet away, arms folded, a tender smile pulled tight at the edges. Mark leaned against the back wall, casual, confident, a man who expected to watch a neighbor's nostalgia and go home to a grilled chicken dinner. The first slide came up, Noah as a walnut-sized miracle under blue light. The room made the cooing sound people make when love is small enough to hold. I clicked the remote, and the fuse burned closer to the charge. I spaced the joyful slides close together on purpose so the momentum felt like a wave. Baby bath time, Santa meltdown, first bike without training wheels, the crooked grin from the missing tooth summer. Parents laughed in recognition. I could hear tears in somebody's throat when the preschool graduation cap slid onto the screen. "You did a good job, Dad," someone said behind me, and the compliment hit me in a tender place I didn't know was exposed. Lauren kept glancing at me and at the screen, a private love playing across her face that made me ache for what we had been. I'd wanted that look to be enough to pull me away from the cliff. It wasn't. Infidelity is a fracture. Reality can't knit back together with a montage. When trust snaps, every old photo becomes both proof of love and evidence of a crime scene. The room settled into easy warmth. I felt the remote in my hand and remembered how the hotel footage would land, not as a scream, but as a silence that drops the temperature 10 degrees. Before the trapdoor sequence, I placed one more piece of joy, a late summer video of Noah hitting a line drive and sprinting toward first, Mark on the dugout fence yelling, "Run!" The audience cheered in our den. The irony was surgical. I took a breath and clicked. Slide. A text thread on Lauren's phone, cropped just enough to keep us out of legal trouble, but not so much that it lost meaning. Same time? Tonight. Miss your hands. A timestamp that placed those messages a block away from our house while I was reading to Noah. I felt the room shift, a tiny ripple that ran through bodies, a recalibration. Someone coughed. The sound of children fidgeting grew louder. Click. Slide. Hotel invoice, room number, Tuesday. Her card, his name typed in accidentally by an underpaid desk clerk. M. Carter. The letters glowed white on navy. The projector hummed like an insect. The adults in the room were suddenly very quiet, like commuters reading the same bad headline on a train. Click. Slide. Grainy hallway still from the hotel camera, timestamp, two people you don't need to squint to recognize. Lauren's hair, Mark's jawline, the way bodies who know each other move in a space they believe is private. She's laughing at something he said. He leans toward her, hand on the curve of her hip that I paid for at Anthropology. The room exhaled all at once. A couple of gasps. One whispered, "Oh my God," that sounded like a prayer and a curse together. The bounce house outside squeaked in the wind like a distant, oblivious parade. Noah turned to look at me, confused. "Dad?" I put my hand on his back and kept my voice gentle. "Hang on, bud." "Turn it off," Lauren said, the softness gone from her voice like a stage set struck between acts. Her face flushed the color of headache. "Turn it off now." Mark started forward, then stopped, his eyes scanning the room the way a coach reads a field. Angles, threats, exits. He opened his mouth and closed it again. "Adults," I said to the room, as calmly as I could muster, "could I have a minute?" Half the people didn't move, frozen in that human place between curiosity and decency. Jess stood and began shepherding kids outside with the magician's help. "Who wants to see the dove again?" she sang, and the children fled in that stampede way kids do. The den thinned to a dozen adults we used to call friends. Lauren's jaw flexed. "How could you do this to Noah? Today? How could you do this to Noah? Any day?" I kept my voice even. "How could you do this to all of us and then ask me to hold the secret while we eat cake?" The words didn't sound like revenge. They sounded like a confession of pain. Mark found his voice. "We should take this offline." He said it like a work meeting, like there was a calendar invite for undoing betrayal. "This is our home," I said, and the word "our" came out heavier than I intended. "And these are our neighbors. They deserve to know who they let into their lives. I deserve to say out loud that my cheating wife has been sleeping with the guy who tells my son to keep his eye on the ball." The phrase, cheating wife, didn't feel like a lyric anymore. It felt like a diagnosis. Something in Lauren cracked then, not tears, not denial, a kind of collapse in place. "I didn't know how to stop," she said, voice small, the sentence a shard. "I kept waiting for a sign." "I set a date on a calendar," I said. "I made a slideshow." A neighbor, Ellen, spoke up from the couch where she'd been holding a paper plate of cake like a shield. "We love you both," she said, the words awkward and sincere. "But love doesn't mean pretending not to see." She set the plate down as if the room had gravity we couldn't negotiate. I thought there would be shouting. There wasn't. The room filled with that thin, high sound people hear after a car accident, the ring of nerves misfiring because the brain can't file what just happened. I turned the projector off. The blank wall felt like a mercy. Outside, the kids started Happy Birthday without us. The song floated in, sweet and stubborn. I swallowed something in my throat that tasted like loss and stood. "I'm going to sing with my son," I said, and walked out to the sunshine. When I stepped onto the driveway, 100 small faces were already burning through the second happy. Noah looked relieved to see me, like I could anchor the song back to normal. I threw my arm around him and sang too loudly to make up for the tremor in my voice. 8 candles flickered like tiny warnings. He squeezed his eyes shut, made a wish, and blew them out with a kid's total commitment. Everybody cheered, and for a heartbeat, the world snapped back into a version we knew. Lauren came out and took her spot at the edge of the table, a woman who used to be my life standing in my yard like a guest at a party she hadn't planned to leave early. Her smile didn't reach anywhere. Mark had vanished, probably to a bathroom or a car. I passed cake to little hands, said, "You're welcome" to a chorus of thank yous, and decided that the conversation with Noah couldn't wait. The truth is a time-sensitive medicine. I crouched beside him as he forked frosting with the seriousness of a surgeon. "Hey, champ, can you take a walk with me for a minute?" He looked at his slice, then at me. "Can I bring my cake?" "You better," I said, and he grinned. We stepped around chalk drawings and into the shade of the oak that drops acorns like ideas. The noise of the party softened behind us. "How come Mom was mad?" he asked, spooning a scoop of blue dinosaur hide into his mouth. Kids are surgical with their questions. They don't want preamble. They want the thing. I sat on the curb so we were eye level. "Sometimes grown-ups hurt each other, buddy," I said, choosing each word like a stone I didn't want to drop on his foot. "And when they do, they have to talk about it, even if it's a hard day." "Did you hurt Mom?" I took a breath. "Mom hurt me," I said, simple and unadorned. "Mom made a promise to our family, and she broke it." I didn't use the phrase cheating wife. That label is adult and sharp. I wanted the truth without the weapon. She has been spending time with someone she's not supposed to. It's not your fault. It's not about you. I love you. That never changes. He blinked up at me. "Is it Coach Mark?" Kids listen more than we think. I swallowed. Yes. He looked at his cake as if it might offer an opinion. The blue frosting shone in the light. Is he still my coach? Not anymore, I said. We'll find a new team, or I'll coach if you want. We can figure this out. He considered that and nodded with a small person's practical acceptance. Can we still go to the batting cages on Saturdays? We can go twice, I said, meaning it with my whole heart. He smiled, a soft, brave thing that made my chest feel like it might split. Are you and Mom getting divorced? He asked, and the question came out like a line drive, fast, direct, no time to flinch. I looked him in the eyes, that earnest brown we share. I don't know yet, I said, because I refuse to let another lie start growing. But we are going to make sure you are safe and loved, no matter what. Some families change shape. The love doesn't have to. He leaned into me, small shoulder against my ribs, and let me hold him. I felt the wild animal in me, rage, humiliation, revenge, sit down and breathe. Family is the opposite of performance. It is the practice ground for truth. I had just blown up our neighborhood mythology in a living room, but here, with my son's cake staining my sleeve, I remembered who I wanted to be, the dad who tells the truth and then shows up to rebuild. We walked back toward the noise. On the way, I saw Lauren by the garage, eyes red, talking to Jess. My sister's face was set in that expression she keeps for people who confuse apology with excuse. When Lauren caught my eye, I gestured with my head toward the side yard. She followed. In the thin slice of privacy behind the trash bins, we stood like strangers who used to have a secret handshake. I hate you, she said quietly, and the words landed like a fist that didn't close. I don't think you do, I said. I think you hate the way truth feels when it's loud. I hate it too. You turned our son's birthday into a spectacle. You turned our marriage into a lie. I kept my voice level because the world was listening, even if it pretended not to. I'm done protecting your comfort. We can talk about custody and counseling and lawyers, or we can try to repair if that's even possible, but we're not doing it under a tarp of silence. She pressed her fingers to her eyes. I didn't know how to tell you, she said. And then it kept going, and every day it was harder to stop. I felt seen. With him. I closed my eyes for a second. Betrayal isn't just lust. It's the story someone chooses about who they are. You can feel seen without making me invisible, I said. That's the deal you broke. That's the deal I won't live with. She nodded, a tiny movement, like agreement or surrender, I couldn't tell. What happens now? First we get through today, I said. Then we tell Noah together. Really tell him, in words we both stand behind. We find a therapist who knows how to talk to kids. We separate for a while. Saying it out loud felt like stepping off the edge of a map. I also felt, oddly, cleaner than I had in months. Infidelity spreads mold in a house. Throwing open windows hurts and heals. She looked at the yard, at our son bashing a piñata with the confidence of the unbroken. I'm sorry, she said finally. I know sorry is small. It is, I said, but it's the only true first word. The Monday after the party, I moved a suitcase to Jess's guest room and replaced my wedding band with a groove in my skin. The house sounded different without Noah's morning cartoons. I'd taken him to school early, packed an extra snack like armor. I stopped for coffee and opened my laptop in the corner of a cafe where everyone else's life looked easy. Bullet points formed like a new language. Therapist referrals, family law consultations, insurance coverage, after-school pickups. Revenge hadn't even made the list because paperwork is the revenge of the wounded. We told Noah together that night at the kitchen table. We said we loved him, that this was not his fault, that our family was changing shape. Lauren didn't use the words cheating wife, but she did say, I broke a promise to your dad. Her voice trembled on promise the way a beam shakes before it cracks. Noah nodded with solemn gravity and asked if we could still make pancakes on Sundays. Every Sunday I have you, I said. He accepted that, like a contract. Therapy started on Thursday. The counselor, a woman with the kindest poker face I've ever seen, gave Noah a box of colored pencils and gave us language like scaffolding. Rupture and repair, secure attachment, boundaries. She told us that children do best with predictable rhythms. Adults survive with honest ones. Do not make him the broker of your pain, she said, eyes level. Do not enroll him in your war. The calendar became a truce line. Weeks with me, weeks with her, baseball swapped depending on games. Wednesdays traded for piano lessons. I learned the grammar of custody apps and the art of not texting when I was lonely. Lauren and I spoke like colleagues in a tense merger, cordial, constrained, careful to keep the knives in the drawer. Mark resigned from coaching 2 days after the party. His email was short and responsible and utterly insufficient. The league sent a note about personal reasons, the town's way of saying everything while saying nothing. Ellen told me half the block was gossiping and the other half was pretending not to. The thing about truth, it doesn't ruin your reputation, it clarifies it. People adjusted around us as if our house had moved 6 inches overnight. In the spare hours, grief came in waves, each labeled with a different loss. The way Lauren used to put her cold feet on my calves in winter, the future vacations we'd never fight about, the inside jokes that now felt like artifacts in a museum of an extinct species. I put my wedding photos in a shoebox I didn't yet have the courage to label. I learned that betrayal isn't a single wound, it's a cluster, each puncture bleeding on its own schedule. One Saturday, Noah and I went to the batting cages like we promised. He missed the first 5 pitches in a row and threw his helmet. I kneel-talked him back into his body, and on the next pitch he cracked a clean liner that thunked off the far net. He grinned so big it looked like sunlight. 10 more tokens? He asked. 10 more, I said. Family is a muscle that gets strong where you work it. Nights were the hardest. That's when the old home movies tried to play on my bedroom wall. The night Noah was born, Lauren crying because she didn't think she could do it, and me saying, "You're doing it right now." The cabin trip where it rained so hard we played cards for 6 hours and decided we didn't need Wi-Fi. I'd turn the reel off and remind myself, those memories are real, and so is this. It's a cruel trick of infidelity that it asks you to doubt the good too. Therapy taught me to let the good stand while letting the bad end. Divorce papers arrived like a FedEx package that weighed nothing and everything. The ink was black and cold. I read the words and felt both heartbreak and relief. That duality is the weirdest gift of a broken marriage, the permission to feel 2 things at once and not apologize. People asked if I regretted the public reveal. Some said it was cruel, some called it brave. My answer changed depending on the day. I regretted that it had to happen in any universe. I did not regret refusing to live in one where my kid learned from me that silence is the way men survive infidelity. I want him to know that truth costs and that paying is how we stay human. By spring, I'd signed the lease on a townhouse with good light and terrible carpets. Noah picked the blue paint for his room and arranged his baseball cards on a bookshelf like stained glass windows. We bought a used couch that didn't match anything and made popcorn on the stove because the old microwave didn't come along. It was small and ours. I found that quiet can be kind. Lauren and I moved through the practicalities, health forms, summer camp deposits, the endless emails of American Parenthood, with something that looked almost like teamwork if you squinted. She started seeing a different therapist on her own. She told me she ended things with Mark. I didn't ask for proof. I realized I was no longer the auditor of her soul. That job had been killing me slowly. On the first Sunday morning of my first week with Noah in the new place, we made pancakes lopsided enough to be art. He asked if I could teach him to make the batter by eye the way I claimed Grandpa taught me. I pretended it was a secret and then showed him anyway. When we sat down to eat, he said grace the way he'd learned at Grandma's. Thank you for food and for Dad, and for a day we can play catch. It wasn't complicated theology. It worked. Jess came over with a plant I would definitely murder and hugged me long enough for my spine to reset. "You look lighter," she said, and I realized I was. The heaviness of suspicion had been replaced by the work of rebuilding. Work is easier than wondering. Revenge had never been the point. Integrity had. And integrity, it turns out, likes routine. Noah's next birthday arrived with that same clean blue morning sky. We kept it small. 2 friends, a backyard scavenger hunt, a store-bought cake he picked himself because the frosting is more fun. We FaceTimed Lauren to sing together. He split the screen with the ease of a kid who knows love can live in more than one house. When he made a wish this time, he opened his eyes and said, "I can't tell you, or it won't come true." "Fair," I said. He smirked. After presents, he curled beside me on the couch, head on my shoulder, the exact weight of 8 becoming 9. "Dad?" "Yeah?" "I'm glad you told the truth that day." He said it like a weather report, neutral, real. It was weird, but then it was better. I swallowed around the lump that sentence put in my throat. "Me too," I said. And I meant it beyond performance, beyond justification, beyond pride. Cheating wife had been a phrase that defined a season. It no longer defined my life. Sometimes I still think about the slideshow, about how the room felt when the lie left it. People will say I should have handled it differently. Maybe they're right. Everyone's a philosopher in someone else's storm. I just know that on a day that was supposed to be a celebration of my son's life, I refused to keep honoring a secret that starved that life of oxygen. I cracked a window and let the air in. The cost was high. The reward is that I can look my kid in the eye when he asks me hard questions and answer in sentences that don't wobble. We're not a perfect family. We're a real one, which might be better. I don't use words like toxic love anymore. I use words like boundaries and repair. Betrayal is part of our story, which means resilience is too. On the nights Noah isn't here, I sometimes drive past the old house, not to haunt myself, but to honor the people we were and the man I'm becoming. Then I go home to my terrible carpets, make tea, and text my sister something dumb because laughter is also a kind of therapy. When I finally fall asleep, it's with the clean ache of a day told honestly. And when I dream, it isn't of hotel hallways or grainy cameras. It's of a boy in a blue jersey yelling, "Ready!" and a man in a batting cage feeding 10 more tokens into a machine that throws fastballs exactly where growth hurts and exactly where it heals.